Good evening. We do have a member of the Minister Alliance here with us this evening. Trevor, could you please come up to the microphone?
Please pray with me. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for bringing us here. Lord, thank you for watching over Oak Grove. Lord, I pray that you continue to work in this city. Lord, and I pray for wisdom and guidance for everyone here tonight. Lord, thank you for this time. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call the September 5th, 2023 Board of Aldermen meeting to order. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Jeremy Taylor,
Here.
Rachel Kilmer, Kelly Netto,
Here.
Jim Shrout,
Here.
Tracy Newcomer,
Here.
Pam Pope,
Here.
and Mayor Dana Webb.
Here, thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business, deletions, or continuances. We do not have any of those this evening, so we'll move on to public comments. Do we have any?
There are none.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. These items are considered on the consent agenda so that members of the board, by unanimous consent, can designate routine items to be approved by one motion. Tonight, we have the approval of the August 21st, 2023 Board of Aldermen meeting minutes and expenditures through August 31st, 2023.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We do not have any of that this evening, so we will move on to new business. The first item for new business is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding approval to apply for the Jackson County ARPA grant for community spaces and parks.
Yes,
Mr.
thank you,
Randall?
Mayor. So Jackson County is seeking proposals to use the remaining county allocations. The county received ARPA funds similar to how we received funds. We were notified last week that they have opened up a grant opportunity. Specifically, one of the categories is $5 million towards community spaces and parks. The deadline, it's a short time period. The deadline is applications are due by September 15th. So we want to come to you tonight to get permission to apply for that grant. The requirements of the grant, they want them to be shovel-ready projects. So we need to have projects that can be completed relatively quickly. Per the program requirements, they need to be substantially completed by the end of next year. You can do some encumbrances after that fact, but they want these completed pretty quickly because they're running out of time to spend the ARPA money from a federal perspective. The other thing that they also want is that this is a reimbursement grant. So they want to make sure the project is done and completed. They want the cities or outside agencies to spend the money and then get reimbursed from that. So certainly, you know, we're going to apply if the board approves so, but anything would certainly come back to this board before money gets spent. Scott has been working this week to look at some options for the use of that money, and certainly anything that the board might consider as well that would fall underneath this. There is no limit to the number of things that we can apply for, so we're going to attempt to get money and see how it goes. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions, or Scott as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
So do you have to have a specific project then in the application, or at least
Yeah,
some?
yes, specific projects that quote unquote should be shovel ready. So there need to be things for us. They would need to be somewhat smaller, you know, playground equipment, perhaps pre-built restrooms where you just do the pad and the restroom comes delivered and you set it down. Things that wouldn't require a lot of engineering or architecture because I'm not sure why. I mean, the county, they want it in 2 weeks, right? So we got to apply for 2 weeks, and so it's got to be things that we can put together that are shovel ready. Unfortunately, due to the timeline, we wouldn't be able to do much more than that, given the 2-week deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So your plans have got to be in at the same time you apply? I mean, that's the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to want to see essentially,
Something.
where you have it, a lot of the details of what you're wanting to accomplish. They also have got some things that they're trying to look at, underserved communities, areas where maybe you don't have a lot of facilities or options, reduce inequality. There's goals both from the county wants to achieve as well as federal requirements for ARPA money.
It said in here that they wanted to look at eastern Jackson County. Where do they draw the line? What is eastern to them?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of an interesting line that they have in there. I think they're stating that they have a lot of park services and access already towards the eastern side of the county. So I take that to mean that they're primarily going to be looking at things more in the urban core.
Oh, I read that wrong.
It's worded strangely, it says where an overwhelming majority of park services and access towards our eastern portion of the county. But we're still going to, if the board approves, we're still going to apply and see if we may still get some projects.
When did we find out about this? I think you said it, but.
Last week.
Okay. And that's when it was open? Like
They
when we-
actually on their website said that they opened it August 21st,
Oh, okay, okay.
but we didn't get the flyer or the email. We got it last week.
Last week.
I vote we do a dog park, because that would be super easy. We already have so that's my vote. But besides that, what if we decide to do a dog park and we order all the stuff for it and it doesn't get delivered in time? And then that's out of our hands. Is that still something like they're like, oh, well, sorry about your luck, pretty much?
So,
Probably.
yeah, the requirements are, it has to be substantially spent or encumbered by the end of next year. And then you have another year or so to spend what's been encumbered. So if you have a signed contract with a vendor and they're delivering stuff,
Then you
that
can
would,
show it's-
right,
I gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I vote dog park.
Yeah, that's certainly something to consider when we would look at it, is if things are on back order or.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess, do you have a specific list? You don't have a specific list right
I
now of
think
projects?
Scott's got some ideas he's worked on.
Yeah, so when we read it, we looked at a dog park and we kind of questioned how well that would fit into the grant because it has to do with the increasing the life expectancy of your population served and things like that. So,
Dogs increase life expectancy, Scott.
so we're trying to go through that, and in doing so, we also found that maybe even the transportation for the senior facility might be something that we could look at in improving to where the van has got additional handicap accessibility, so for the wheelchair. The restroom facility has always been needed at Frick Park down by the playground, and soon to be 2 playgrounds, and that would be that prefab restroom that would could go in shovel-ready, which is also, there's several out there that have already gone through the procurement process where they're cooperative purchase agreement, so it would shorten the time period of being able to acquire it without having to go for bid. A trail around Caraway Lake, that's always been requested. We thought that might be a smaller project that could happen that would also allow the benches and stuff to go around that. That would be fairly easy and quick. The Webb Park Playground, the one that's been there since '99, is getting to its end of life, and that might be something that we could look at as well. In addition, we can research the dog park. Those are just some ideas, and we're open to any idea that anybody might have, but I know those are the several items that people have talked about in the past.
I make a motion, we approve the staff to apply for the Jackson County ARPA grant for community spaces and parks.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for approval to apply for the Jackson County ARPA grant for community spaces and parks. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding downtown parking. Mr. Randall?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is just for a general discussion of the board, as well as direction to staff regarding downtown parking hours. Based on your guidance, then staff would draft an ordinance to bring back to a future meeting. In doing research, didn't provide any examples because really there's a lot of examples about what downtowns do. Some have no restrictions at all, such as what Oak Grove currently has. Some have no overnight parking. Some have 2-hour maximum parking, so you can only park at a space for 2 hours. Some have 2-hour parking Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Some folks have 4-hour parking, 6-hour parking, so it's really what works best for the community. So we're just looking for direction from the board about whether or not we should have certain parking restrictions in downtown.
The downtown parking that only has restricted on it right now is in front of the old city hall, right? That says Monday through Friday, something to 5, is that correct?
There might, that would, is
Yeah,
there an old
each of
sign
those-
this
each
just
of
for
those
the, in front of City
spaces-
Hall?
Well, those 6 spaces have,
Oh, you're talking about in the City Hall, yeah, not on Broadway, but
No.
City Hall, yes. So
Yeah.
there, so the back of Old City Hall is public parking. The 6 spots directly on the north side of the building are 8 to 5 reserved parking, and that's for use by the Chamber of Commerce
Okay.
and Historical Society. So that's to allow them to have certain spaces for when they're there operating. The parking in the back is open to anyone, and then across the street, behind downtown, that's also open to anyone. That is 48-hour
the
parking.
public, the parking spot is,
Yes.
okay.
So what you were talking about now is just addressing the street parking.
Yeah,
right?
just street
Not
parking.
the
Yeah.
parking lots.
Well, I was just giving an example that we do already have a time frame on something. It gives a time frame on there.
Can I ask, and maybe I was in the meeting that I missed, why did this come up?
We own the parking now.
And
Before,
we did not before?
we couldn't put parking.
State.
Did
State
we
owned it.
have a need to restrict it? Like,
It was just brought up as, to direct city staff to look into it and bring it back to you all, so.
yeah,
That's
so
what
I
it
guess
is.
that's kind of what,
Yeah.
I mean, is there a need to restrict? Have we gotten a lot of complaints about parking downtown or other situations?
Have you got any input from business owners in the
Yeah.
downtown area?
So there are definitely some business owners that would like restricted parking. I did ask some members of the Chamber of Commerce that have businesses in downtown. Their preference would be that it's Monday through Friday, 2-hour max parking, 8 to 5. They say they don't really have any issues with people parking in front of businesses after hours, and on the weekends, there's really not much of an issue either. But
But there is an issue of people just like parking and then just like staying all day?
yeah, there are some owners that have stated that there are folks that park all day in downtown spots that they would prefer it be opened up for customer usage. So customer could park and go in and,
There's like, what do you even do down there for the whole day?
There-
I mean, honestly, what do you, why would you park there the whole day? There's not like,
I think that there's a difference in some of the downtown business owners that have more retail versus those that are in office space.
gotcha, there it is. That's the piece I was missing. Okay. Tracy, you looked like you were going to say something and then you stopped.
He covered.
Oh, okay, okay.
The only other input I have is I would like to see it 8 to 5 rather than later in the day. I would hate to see it affect the American Legion because they need that parking in the evenings when everyone else is closed.
Good point.
Well, if you only have an 8 to 5, I mean, parking, if you've got a restaurant or a beer joint open, it's gonna be later than 5 o'clock.
Well, yeah,
The
for-
No.
restriction is during the 8 to 5
Yeah.
time.
Then after 5.
You can park there as
You
long
can
as
park there.
But I think that's
Oh.
what he's saying, is that if a restaurant comes in and there's no restriction, I mean, you're still, I mean, well, I don't know. Like,
Well, you still have the public parking that's the parking lot too, and then you have the public parking behind the old city hall.
It just doesn't seem
That-
necessary.
that
Who's
just
gonna,
is-
like, so are we gonna start handing out parking tickets? I mean, who's gonna do, it just seems
Yeah,
a little
You guys-
unnecessary.
thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. So we would most likely do it based on complaints. Going out there every 2 hours, looking at who's parked where, making note of that, and then coming back in 2 hours would require a lot of time by the police department. So we would likely do it based on somebody calls in a particular complaint. Then as time allows, if officers are not on a call, then we would go by, mark the time, come back if we can. If it's been 2 hours, then yeah, we would issue a citation.
How many spots are we talking about?
Oh, gosh, Corey, do you recall how many you striped?
I do not know how many we put down, no, sir.
There are, I will say, there's more now than there were. So there's, and part of that we looked at when the other thing is too, accessible parking spots. So there's 2 locations that we looked at for the accessible parking, which would be handicap. One would be by Old City Hall, and then the other one would be north of 12th by, kind of in between where Scrapyard used to be and the strip mall. There's a couple of spaces there. The reason we looked at those 2 spots is you want them to be close to a driveway where there's a smooth ramp so they can get up onto the sidewalk. Wanted to have one on each side of Broadway as well. And then the intersection doesn't work that well because there's the bulb out there, and so the person would have to walk kind of into traffic to get up into the crosswalk. And so we thought those 2 spaces, if the board wants, those 2 spaces probably would be the best to provide accessible handicap spots if.
Well, I could definitely see we don't want anybody parking there overnight, just leaving it there overnight. I don't think we want that.
Does that even happen? I mean, how long we've never had a problem with it before.
I think it has.
I'm
Overnight.
sure it happens,
I
but
think
it's
it-
never been a situation that was so problematic, it needed to be discussed in my,
Used to with the apartments.
and there are actually, yeah, still,
Yeah.
aren't they above,
Yeah, so there used to be people that parked overnight, but then I think they worked out something else.
yeah.
And the two lanes, northbound and southbound, like in front of the bank and in front of the Edward Jones, that continues to be striped out to keep people from parking in those lines of sight, is that right?
Yeah, so we were able to add a few parking spaces.
You did.
In those areas, but there will be, we haven't yet because we wanted to wait till MoDOT to stripe the crosswalks. We will go back and we will stripe yellow, no parking in those areas. So, yeah, in front of the Edward Jones and Jackson Avenue, there would be no parking area. That's to preserve the sight lines if you're turning right from 12th Street onto Broadway.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right.
Yeah, I think the 8 to 5 seems reasonable with the restriction.
Are you making a motion?
No, I thought this was
It's
just
just direction
conversation.
to staff, right?
That's discussion, consideration, and possible action.
But isn't that? what
Yeah,
it says?
I mean, a
Direction to
motion
staff?
would be clearer to us so that when we go draft the ordinance, we know exactly
They
what.
need a direction of what to do, if anything.
So are we talking about a 2-hour restriction, or did we even?
It's for you as the board to discuss. If you want to take action, to come up with some sort of a motion, if you want to make a motion, to direct city staff of what that would be, what that outline would be.
I make a motion, we leave it as is.
I would probably put at least a no parking overnight. know that why would anybody would wanna leave their car out on the street all night long? That's my opinion, but
I'm interested on why they picked 8 to 5, when most businesses downtown don't open until noon. And we're open until 6 or 7, so that doesn't really fit.
And who is they?
Which ones are open till 6 or 7?
Most of the boutiques.
Are they?
No.
So, yeah, I will say that downtown Lee Summit is 9 to 6.
Yeah, but it's
So-
downtown Lee Summit.
Right, yeah.
I
There
mean,
other,
it seems like a situation that we are creating just to sit here and talk about. but
yeah, there
I
are
guess
other,
That's my motion.
Odessa, Grand Valley, from what I could tell, don't have restricted parking. They do both have accessible parking, but not restricted hours.
All right, if there's no other actions, motions with seconds, then I will move on to the next item on the agenda is information reports. Mr. Randall, do you have one?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Williams? All right. Mark?
Tomorrow at 11 a.m. is the monthly test of the outdoor warning system, weather permitting.
Thank you. Chief?
Just a reminder, National Night Out is September 14th, Thursday evening. So see you at Web Park.
Thank you. Corey?
No report.
Thank you. Kim?
No report.
Scott?
Tennis court projects expected to begin tomorrow. Playground still expected to arrive at the end of the month. And then this Friday, I will be out of town. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Kelly, do you have a report?
And doggy day at the pool is Saturday. No, I don't have a report.
no report.
No report.
Tracy?
No report.
Pam?
I don't have a report, but I would like to thank any city staff that helped with getting the house removed at White Oaks that was condemned, and the foundation that was very dangerous for children and whatnot. It's wonderful to drive by and not see that. Thank
Good to
you.
hear, good to hear. I do not have a report, and now I'm looking for a motion for executive session.
Make a motion, we adjourn to executive session 610.021, 1, 2, and 12.
Second,
I have a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session 610.021, 1, 2, and 12. Any discussion? If not, City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Jeremy Taylor,
Yes.
Kelly Netto,
Yes.
Jim Shrout,
yes.
Tracy Newcomer,
Yes.
Pam Pope.
Yes.
We are adjourned to executive session.